Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Mindsets Podcast. I am your host, Angus Cook, and we are on episode 39 now, which is absolutely flying by. So thank you for coming back. If this is your first episode, welcome. Hopefully this isn't your last episode. But before I continue rambling on, I like to hand straight over to my guests so they can introduce themselves before we get talking about their journey. So Charlotte, do you want to take over and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm 25 and I live in London. I've lived in London my whole life. I love sport, played football growing up, and then I've now got into Hyrox and I'm currently working at Third Space.
Amazing. So there's quite a lot of things that we will discuss. I feel like I say that about a lot of guests. Obviously, that's the kind of guest that I bring on, so we can learn a lot from these people. But before we dive into the story, something we do a little bit differently on this podcast is we like to do show and tell. So show and tell is effectively each guest brings something along to show and tell. I actually don't know what it is most of the time. Today's scenario, I actually don't know what it is, but it gives us a bit of an understanding of what this person may have achieved or something interesting about them. So do you want to show us what you've brought along?
Yes. So I brought along probably my biggest achievement to date. And it's because it's got a bit of a backstory, but I brought along my Hyrox World Championship badge that I got in Nice. And this means so much to me because I went on such a journey to get to the Hyrox World Championships. And yeah, I think...
I've not actually seen that badge before. So again, I do appreciate this is a podcast and we do a show and tell, which people can't see. So what we're looking at is we're looking at a small rectangular pink badge with the blue writing on it that says World Championships, Nice, France, Hyrox. I've not seen that because normally when you do a race, you have like the big Hyrox letters, the location. But that's quite a nice, like, cute one to put on.
Yeah, no, this is a cute one. I actually got a medal as well, but I was looking for it this morning. I couldn't find it, so I need.
No worries.
So I brought the little badge to show. But
awesome. So we'll probably go in through your story of how you got to getting that badge, but I know that there's something else that you've brought with you as well.
Yeah. I brought the London Marathon badge just because that's another great achievement that I did, and it was such a mental, like, to achieve the London Marathon, like the training, and like I really underestimated how hard a marathon would be. But now, like, I feel so much fitter than the point I was at when I did achieve the London Marathon. I feel like I want to do more marathons, but when I did this, it was harder than I thought. So
I feel a lot of people, when they do their first marathon, unlock a bit of their potential. Like, it's a proving something to yourself to a degree. So like you saying that you want to do more now, you might not have been able to imagine that in the year before you did your first marathon, that you'd ever be saying that, because I know I thought that, but before I had gone like some decent distance, I never thought I'd want to do more of it, but it's not out of the question now.
Yeah, no, I 100% would want to do another marathon, and if I did, I would do it completely different, because even though I got this badge and it was just, and like achieving this is just so great, and I managed to raise loads of money for Get Kids Going, which is a charity, I just put way too much pressure on myself, and I just didn't enjoy the day as much as, or the lead up to it as much as I would have loved to. So I really want to do another marathon in the future.
We'll get into what you would change, because I think there's a few things along the way that we can discuss on that, and a few things you've learned. So if we dive into the story then, so spinning it back to the early days, has sport always been something that you were interested in?
Yeah. Ever since I was literally a child, like I think from about 2 years old, my parents have like embedded sport into me, and fitness, and like the values of health. Like both my parents were very sporty, and my whole family are very, like, sport is always on in my house. Like, and I was part of every sports team, sports club growing up, from like rollerblading to running to swimming to, I did every after school club you could ever imagine, and trampolining on a Saturday, like gymnastics, ballet, every sport you could imagine. My parents like let me do and find out what I like to do. And I came from like that house that was like, on the weekend you have to be up at 7 to start your day. You're off to the park. Like, there's no lions. Like, you've got to go and seize the day. And it was always something active. So I come from a very like active family. My cousin played football for Arsenal. Like, my other cousin played England for volleyball for England. My sister played like sport. She played football and she played netball. Like, everyone's a bit sporty.
This is interesting because I know obviously where we're going with this story, but you've mentioned a couple of other people in your family there that play sport, but you mentioned football.
Yeah.
So you ended up going down the football route yourself.
Yeah.
So what was your path in terms of getting interested in women's football and then kind of pursuing football to the point where it almost became a career?
Yeah. So my sister played football and my dad is just, so he loves football, and he I think watching my sister play, that got me involved in football. I used to play at school. I don't even know it was a girls team, so I used to play with the boys and got involved in playing football. And then growing up, my dad actually coached the local team that I played for, and then I got into Tottenham. I think I was about 10. And then I was playing with school and I managed to get into Barnet, which was in the Women's Super League at the time. Women's football was completely different when I was
going to say this
playing.
Because that's why I find it really interesting is if we look at women's football now, there is a development and it's still somewhat rogue for a girl to turn around and be like, oh yeah, football's my main thing, I feel like. And that barrier is breaking down, which is great. Yeah. But if we look back to when you're talking about here, I personally didn't know any girls at my school, to my knowledge, that were playing football.
Yeah,
so no, it wasn't. What we're kind of talking about.
It wasn't a big thing, but and then so it's got so much bigger and so much better, and it's amazing. And maybe if I was in the stage it's at now, I would still be playing, just because of all my injuries. There wasn't enough like I couldn't with my sports team, even though I was playing in the Women's Super League, get an MRI scan straight away. I had to go through the NHS route. But yeah, no, women's football has improved majorly, but I played up until about 18, and then I got a scholarship to America, and a week before I was going to go, I tore my ACL and then I just decided not to go.
Yeah, I mean, one question I wanted to ask was, what position did you play?
I play centre midfield, and
so you were the engine, is what they say. Like, you're in the engine room because you're in the middle of the field. You're doing a bit of everything. Obviously, the ball has to go through you to get to the front. It also goes back to you to work backwards and play the simple football, I guess, that we see England playing, which is really boring sometimes. But you're an influential part of that team. And so there's a lot of change of direction. There's a lot of involvement in tackles. You're going to be seeing a lot of action. Supposedly a non-contact sport, but it's not. You mentioned obviously getting an MRI, which isn't that easy. And I assume that's related to this injury because it was in your knee, so it was your ACL.
Yeah.
So how did the injury actually happen?
It was actually in training, and I just twisted and I just tore my ACL. It wasn't fun. And I'd put so much, I had sat SATs while I was doing my A-levels. I wasn't expecting to go to uni in the UK. I was so lucky that I got the good grades in my A-levels as well, and I got into Loughborough. But yeah, I could have still gone to America, but I think I made the right decision staying here and going to Loughborough because I loved it. So
which university would it have been in the USA, do you know?
Hofstra.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a good university.
So in terms of football progression wise, were you at the time thinking, full time, I'm going to be a football player full time? And then that got taken away?
Sure. That was what I wanted to do. I put my whole life into it. I was training 7 days a week. I probably overdid it in the end. I've got quite an obsessive personality, and my whole life was football. I stopped going out with friends and stuff because I just wanted to play football. I literally have the most supportive family in the world, and my dad would drive me every night. He would finish work early, drive me 2 hours to Milton Keynes. We'd get to Milton Keynes and then drive me home, and I'd get home at 12, and then I'd go again the next day.
It just seems as well in terms of the like sudden change from I'm going to America in a week to now I'm not going and I'm not even sure if I'm doing this sport anymore, but I'm also going to this random location in the middle of the UK. Because if we talk about, I mean, I've had a lot of guests on from Loughborough, but if we talk about Loughborough, it's very well known for its sport. It's not well known for its location. It is just off the M1 heading north. It's effectively in the middle of nowhere, really. I mean, you can get to places like Leicester and Birmingham within an hour, but if Loughborough wasn't known for sport, it wouldn't be known for much.
No.
So having this path of I'm going to America, I'm going to go and play football, and then you end up in this kind of motorway side town. Fortunately, it is good for sport, but you were injured when you went to uni. So what was the thought process in terms of you've gone to university, you have now got a degree, which was sports and exercise science. But you're kind of still injured. You're not really sure what you're doing sports-wise. How are you trying to figure all of that out?
So because I had spent so much of my younger years playing football and I had dedicated my whole life to playing football, I was really strict on like I had a running coach to make me the best runner in the football team. I had like personal trainers. Like my parents like put a lot of like money into me and I'm so fortunate. But I also like put so much pressure on myself and like I didn't drink alcohol. I was really strict with what I was eating. And then when everything happened, my whole life just came a bit coming down and I just went a bit off the rails, which you see a lot of athletes do. And I just didn't really know what my purpose was. So first year of uni, I went a bit crazy. And probably not to most people, but like I was went out drinking all the time. Like I was eating whatever I wanted for the first time after being so restrictive. And I just went the complete opposite end to what I was at. And I gained a lot of weight and my confidence I fell out of love with sport a bit, even though I was doing a sports science degree. And my confidence just shattered a bit by the end of first year. But then second and third year, I tried to change that around.
I think that's really relatable though, because I mean, most people go to university and you have freshers. It's the first time for a lot of people that they're not living at home. You are in full control of what you eat. And it is nice to let loose a little bit. But also, as a result of that being the norm, it is completely okay to do it because if anything, your metabolic rate can handle the amount of alcohol and calories you're going to put in through things like that. But it is really good to a degree to get that out of your system in a way.
100%.
And so
I had the best freshers time. Like I wouldn't change it. Like I had so much fun, but then like by the end of first year, it took its toll. Like,
see, I was almost different. So when I went into first year, I had come off the back of doing ski season. So I'd done a lot of like drinking and that sort of thing out there. I'd not really taken care of my body because you're on a ski season. There's no gyms or anything. So I came back to uni and I was like, okay, I need to switch on. I need to be serious. I'm doing a tough degree. Everyone else hasn't had a year off. Is my brain going to still be able to do this? So I was like going out. I'd let myself go out once, maximum twice a week, threw myself back into the gym, threw myself into studying, but not properly. So I wasn't doing any of it properly. So I wasn't seeing the progress, but I also wasn't enjoying myself. So when I came into second year was when I started to let loose a little bit more. Had a really good second year, and then I was like, okay, shit, I need to sort this out. And again, a bit like you said, in the later years of university, started to switch back on to like training a bit more properly. But what were you at that point training for, or were you just training to be a bit more healthy?
So then I got into, I had my MRIs and my parents actually like paid for me to go private with them because it was just taking too long with the NHS. And then I needed the operation, ACL reconstruction, but I think it was like $9,000 to get like privately. So I just said, we'll go down the NHS route. And that was, I mean, they would have if I really wanted to, but I think that took like a year for that whole progress to happen. So it was the end of first year that I got my knee fix basically. And then I was able to go and play sport again. So I was in the water polo team, which was so much fun. Met like my friends for life in there. And I also started in second year coaching football again and like got my football coaching badges at Loughborough, and I started coaching the women's college team. And then I also started up, even at Loughborough, there was like, what's it called? Differences in men's sport and women's sport. Like there was inequality. Like there wasn't an IMS women's Super League. So I actually set that up and became the manager, and set that up, and I got to create the kit, and that was such a good experience, and that still carries on today at Loughborough. And that was such a good, like, I felt I was really like achieving something doing that, and I loved it. So I had the purpose again in second year, and I felt really good, and I was like coaching, managing, playing sport again, and like I feel like and then COVID hit, and that was third year of uni was.
So I was going to say, obviously you were doing the degree at this time, and you said it almost pushed you to being out of love with it, but that might have been because you didn't have the purpose. Did you end up finding that the degree was, you're happy you chose the degree? Because a lot of people go to university and go, I wish I didn't do that degree by the time they come out of it.
Well, sport's always been my passion. So sport and exercise science was a good degree, and like I learned a lot. But I would say, like, if you know exactly what you want to do, like going down a sporting route. So if you want to be a physio, or you want to be a PE teacher, or you want to be a trainer, like a personal trainer or something, strength and conditioning coach, I don't think you need to do a sports science degree, because, well, you can do it, but then you have to do a master's or more qualifications after, which is like a lot of degrees. If you're going to be a physio, just go and do the physio degree first. I don't think you need to do a sports science, then a physio degree.
That makes sense.
I feel like with a sports science degree, you need to then do a degree after the sports science degree.
Okay. Now, you mentioned COVID. What changed in COVID that made you consider doing marathons?
It made me consider doing marathons.
Because the thing is with London, and I'm sure I don't want to touch a nerve with people who've had some bad news this year, but you have to sign up and it's a ballot. So there is a degree of like luck in actually being able to run it anyway.
Yeah.
But what made you want to sign up to do the London Marathon?
Okay. So I went to Barcelona for a year to teach abroad in my placement year, and I got into trail running, and I got back into running, and I really enjoyed it. And then living in Barcelona was insane as well. And like, I really fell back in love with fitness again in Barcelona. And I was teaching PE, and it was a really fun experience. And then COVID hit, so it got cut short. But then I came back and I continued. I didn't really have a lot to do, so like running was my outlet. And I'm one of these people that don't exercise too much for like what I look like. It's more literally for like my mental health and just pushing myself to the limit, and like performance. Like I'm so competitive, and I want to perform well and push myself. But yeah, running is just like, for mental health. Like honestly, nothing makes me feel better than going on a nice long run.
Yeah, I think it's that challenge, and the ultimate challenge is not stopping when you're doing long distances.
Yeah.
So you mentioned if you were to redo your marathon training now, you'd do it completely differently.
Oh my God.
What were you doing in the first instance?
Completely differently. Firstly, there are so many run clubs in London now, like so many, which I've only just got into. But I wasn't aware of all these run clubs. So I was running all these long distances on my own, and it's horrible running on your own, like for like 30Ks. Like it was just, and it makes it so much harder. So I did all my training on my own, which I found really hard. My boyfriend Joe's actually recently got into running long distance, which has made it so much easier as well, because he'll come for runs with me now. Whereas he was injured at the time, so I was literally just running on my own, which is so boring. And yeah, I just think I was running too much as well, and I was like overdoing it, and then I was putting so much pressure on myself, and because I had to raise the money as well, I was getting really stressed about raising the money. And then I was like, oh, am I going to be able to do it? And then by the time marathon day came, I felt a bit of an injury in my hip, and I think I just overtrained. Which,
did you set your own program as well, or did you follow something online?
I did follow a program, but it was like the Nike, and I think like they would say run like 12K, and then some days I'd run like 15, and I'd be like, yeah,
just overdoing it.
Do the rest days as much.
Yeah, fair enough. So I think especially now, you can get a lot more tailored advice. But like you said, run clubs and running with someone. I'm also someone that, and I don't know if anyone's listening to this and they don't follow me personally. I'm not trying to make you follow me personally, but for people that do, you will see that a lot of the time, what I'm posting on like my Instagram story or anything like that is generally me in some sort of pain cave when I'm training, because I really get a benefit for that mentally in the same way you said. But the thing with a longer run, there is definitely a pain cave, especially in the marathon. A lot of time people call it the wall, especially if you haven't fueled properly. You'll get that to that point where everything's telling you to stop. You've just got to persevere. However, when you're in your training runs, you're not necessarily supposed to be hitting that point. And what that means is that you're going at a pace where you could run quicker, but you're not, because you're trying to get the volume and the time on the feet, which is very important. And unfortunately, that does become inherently boring and really hard to commit to, because it's tough to be like, I'm going to go off and spend 2 hours by myself getting hot and sweaty, but also not like finding it that hard.
When I first did my first marathon, this was like when I was quite new to running. I didn't realize the differences in like doing interval running in the week and doing slow long runs. My slow long runs weren't slow enough. Whereas now, if I'm running slower than 6 minutes a kilometre, which I was doing for my recent half marathon for like long runs, I still managed to I got my fastest half marathon time recently. I got 1:38. Most of my training runs were slower than 6 minutes a kilometre. And like, it's crazy, like, that the slow runs are really important. And like,
hugely.
And I was comparing myself. Don't use social media as comparison, because that was one of the things that I struggled most with my marathon training as well. I just kept comparing myself to other people and being like, they're out running 30k. I've not run 30k this week. I need to go run 30k. And then I wasn't following my plan. So I think I was looking at people who I used to run with, I'd be like, they're running at 5 minutes a kilometre. I need to be doing my training runs at that. And I was just comparing myself way too much to other people.
I think one piece of it, that's an excellent piece of advice, because ultimately, if you have a training plan to get your goal and you work to your plan, you will achieve your goal. And everyone's goals look different. So if you're comparing yourself to someone who's got an entirely different set of goals, then, you're just putting yourself at risk of injury. But also, that person might not be following their plan properly, and they may end up getting injured. And so if you're trying to compete with someone for no reason that is going to put themselves into an injured state, you're going to get in an injured state for no reason.
Also, why am I in comparison with this person? Like, you're your own person.
I'll be honest. I don't think either of us sat in this room are going to break the world record for the London Marathon or a marathon in general. So why are we being that competitive?
I don't know why. And I've changed, like, we'll get into when I got ill and stuff. But like, before I got ill, like, everything was just so much of competition, or like how fast I can do it. Now, when I do a sporting event, I do it for fun and like enjoyment, and I've seen the best results because I don't put any pressure on myself anymore. Like, I just go and have fun, and if I'm not going to have fun, what is the point of doing it? Like,
couldn't agree more. So, in fact, I think very similarly to that, and I want to get into how you've come about that. So, it's obviously not the nicest way to come about it, but last year you fell ill, effectively. What happened? So
this time last year, my whole world changed completely. It was just one day. Was the day before I was in Manchester with my boyfriend's parents, and his mum's really into sport and like fitness as well. And we went for a run in the rain, and then she goes swimming in this lake every day. So we all went swimming in this lake, and I think I swallowed a bit of the lake water. Anyway, we got home that night and I felt so ill, and I was being sick everywhere. And then I was just in so much pain in my tummy. And I ended up in hospital with a burst appendix, ileitis and colitis, I think, and E. coli. I'm not sure. My tummy was so messed up. Like, so then I had an operation to get rid of take my appendix out. Well, it was all burst anyway. But the operation didn't go as smoothly as they would have liked. Most people are out in like 3 days a week. Like my mum was on holiday. She thought nothing of it. She's had her appendix out. She was like, oh, it's fine. Like, anyway, the next day, my sister and my boyfriend came up to see me in hospital, and they were in the ward with me, and I was like shaking, and like my heart was beating really fast, and I'd gone, my temperature was like over 45 degrees. Sweat was dripping off me. My sister like called the doctor, like she's not okay. I'd gone into septic shock and basically was about to die. Like I had so many doctors come and like treat me. I don't really know what happened then. Anyway, I was sepsis, and I was in hospital for I think over 2 months, or just about 2 months, and it was the hardest time of my life. And I had infection all in my stomach. My temperature was not dropping below like 40 degrees.
Which is nuts, by the way. For people that aren't or haven't been ill recently and used a thermometer, if you're over, I think it's like 37.5 in your temperature, you're considered probably not okay to go to work. So adding another 2.5, because your normal rate is between 36 and 37.25.
Yeah, mine wasn't dropping. I think my temperature got up to like 46, 47, but it wasn't dropping below 40 degrees for like 2 months. And I was on, they tried every antibiotic. I was on like the strongest antibiotics for like 3 months, which isn't good for you. I had so many CT scans. Then the infection wasn't going out of my stomach. So then they tried draining it out of my stomach through all different ways. Still wasn't going out. And in the end, because I was in this ward, I wasn't sleeping. I was the longest person in this ward that I was in, and the ward next to me actually all got COVID. In the end, my mental health was just going down. I was so lucky. I had the most supportive family. My mum came back from holiday. My family would come and see me from the minute that they could at 2:00 till the closing that they could. So I was so lucky that I had them to come see me every day, because some people had no one in there. But still, it was horrible. And in the end, they just let me out without all the infection gone. And it's still not completely gone, but they're hoping that it just goes naturally. But my temperature's back down, and I feel the healthiest. Well, I say that I've still got a bit of stomach issues, and I have to be really careful with what I eat, which I'm still trying to fix. But I got to a point that I was like the fittest and healthiest that I've ever been. And like, I changed my whole life like from that moment, because I stopped worrying so much, because life is so short. That's what it taught me.
I think it's amazing, first of all, that you managed to pull through that. Like, it's a very, very scary thing to have to deal with. And the fact that you're saying like, it's still not gone.
Yeah, well,
you're having to train on it. You're having to kind of adjust your lifestyle to it. I was going to ask you, what's the biggest sort of adjustment that you've had to make based on the fact that, you've come out and it's still technically there?
Yeah, I think so. I've really changed my diet, and I'm still trying to work out what works for my tummy, because I lost a lot of weight in hospital, like a lot of weight, and I'm actually trying to gain weight and like gain strength at the moment, because I went through like feeling the fittest, and now I feel a bit weak. Like, I've been injured. I got injured again after my Hyrox, and now I feel a bit weak, but now I'm trying to gain back strength and weight a bit. But like, I've changed my whole diet, but it's still like some things don't work well for me, and it's really hard to work out what it is that works well for my tummy and what doesn't. And just like my mental health, like I feel so much better, but then sometimes I do like realize that it must have had such a big effect on me, especially when I first came out of hospital, because I was constantly hearing this like beeping noise from the like, or like people screaming in the middle of the night and stuff. Like, I was really like, when I first came out, too much noise would like really overstimulate me, which was really weird. But now I feel that I've got over that bit, like too much noise.
Did you find that training, once you could get back to training, was that something that you needed as part of your life to kind of feel a bit of progression into being a bit more, I don't want to use the term normal, that you weren't normal beforehand, but normal for you?
Yeah, so it's weird. So I actually couldn't walk
Wow.
which was crazy. I had been bedbound and I wasn't allowed to eat anything for like 6 days. And when I was in hospital, I was just on a I don't know, like a drip that they would put me on. I wasn't even allowed to drink anything. It was really weird for like 6 days. And then I was like slowly allowed to eat, and I'd have I did not touch the hospital food. I don't even know what it is. My mum would bring me food every day, or by the end of it, I was ordering Nando's every night for dinner. I'd get a chicken wrap, and that would be my whole day. But sorry, what was the question?
No. So when it comes to getting back into fitness, I want to jump back again. Sometimes I cross timelines. I want to jump back to when the event actually happened. Did you feel your appendix burst?
I knew something wasn't right.
Like, did it instantly happen?
I think it had happened before, like not happened, but it was something was telling me in my stomach a month before, because I kept saying I thought it was anxiety from work and stuff, because I started not enjoying what I was doing, which we can go back into. But my mental health wasn't great before, I think, and I wasn't sure of that. So I think my tummy was in bits before, but then it just happened that day. Maybe the lake water just set it off. But yeah.
So life is very different now. You beforehand, as you said, you weren't really that into the job you're doing, because you left university with a sports and exercise science degree and you got into law consultancy.
Yeah,
which is a bit of a jump.
I was a researcher, and it was just a very desk-based work. And as someone who literally can't sit still for more than 5 minutes.
I'm doing a very good job, by the way, right now, guys. I've got us strapped into the chair.
Moving. It was a really nice company to work with and people were really nice. But I got this job 2 days after uni just because I needed the money. I didn't have a break after uni, which most people had the summer off and stuff to go. I just got this job, and the money wasn't bad. And I think that's what kept me in, because the jobs in sport were quite low paid, to start with, the starting level. So I just got this job. My sister had worked there before, and I just it wasn't what I wanted to do in life, and it wasn't my purpose. I just didn't feel fulfilled. It was actually quite sad, but if people asked me what I did, I was quite embarrassed to tell them that I'd gone from be doing this sports science. Everyone who knew me knew how passionate I was about sport, fitness. At uni, I always wanted to coach people. I'd take people to the gym and always want a training partner and be oh, can I train you today, even though I wasn't a personal trainer. And people, I started getting people wanting to train with me all the time at uni, and I loved that. And then going straight into this job, and it just wasn't me. And then I fell down what a lot of people fall down, the trap that you feel you can't get out of. I was in the corporate world, and I just felt I could never get out of it, and I cared too much about what other people thought.
For sure. As someone that has recently made the jump is a lot less big than it feels like. And don't get me wrong, I'm also currently a walking example of it not working out like it seems like it does in the movies.
Yeah.
It isn't an easy transition to make, but at the same time, I really don't regret it at all.
No. I don't regret it at all.
So I feel like your change, both in your career, the way that you're training and how you're having to adjust your diet and that sort of thing, obviously comes from the incident.
Yeah, it changed my life completely.
It's changed your perspective of life in a way, because as you said, life's short.
Life is so short, and I still need to remind myself this when I get down days, because it really is, and it can change overnight like that. I'm so lucky to be here, and so when I came out of hospital, I had to relearn to walk. I remember I was struggling to walk 6,000 steps a day, and I'd go on walks, and then I slowly started running again, and then I just started getting my love back for running. And then before I went into hospital, I started getting into Hyrox, and I did have a Hyrox event booked in the October, but I had to cancel it because I wasn't fit enough or strong enough. I couldn't run enough. You have to be strong for Hyrox. It requires a lot of your body, and I really didn't want to pull out, but I had to pull out because I knew it would cause injury. But then I signed up to another, once I started getting back into my running, and I then started feeling the fittest I'd ever felt. Like, I don't know what it was, but I had a lot more time on my hands, and I just started running for fun and like enjoying it. And I joined Scrambled Legs Running Club on the weekends, which they do like long distance.
They do absurd distances.
Yeah, really recommend if you like long distance. Everyone's lovely. But I was doing that, and I just started feeling really fit. So I signed up to one in I think March. March. The Hyrox in London, and then I was feeling the fittest I'd ever felt, and I managed to get into the Hyrox World Championship in Nice, which was crazy because I think I got a time of like 109, I'm not sure, which was really good for someone who had like only learned to walk again and like got back into running. I was like, wow. Like when I got told that I got into the Hyrox World Championship, that's why that was such a great achievement for me, because I don't know, I'd really like pushed my limits, and I did it for fun. Like, I didn't put any pressure on myself. I just and I wasn't actually going to do the Hyrox World Championship in Nice because I'd never done pro weights, and I just thought, I don't know if I'm ready for this, but I had nothing to lose, and like I was like, I might never get this opportunity again, and so I did it, and it was the best experience of my whole life. My mum and dad came to watch, and we just had the best time ever. And if I could relive a holiday, it would be that one.
Amazing. I think it's similar to what you mentioned when you did the marathon in terms of the achievement, but often the biggest event, so the marathon on the actual day of the London Marathon and Hyrox at the World Championships, is almost a celebration of the work that's put in.
Yeah.
So a lot of someone else that's been on the podcast previously has mentioned that it's almost like doing a victory lap, because you've done the hard work. Yeah. And then you get to go and do the victory lap, which is actually just the race day. And if you approach it like that, you actually enjoy the day a lot more, rather than putting all the pressure on that day and then the day being over and you go, okay, well, now I've got nothing to celebrate.
Honestly, I tell people just not to put pressure on themselves on race day, and like, it doesn't, just go out and enjoy it, because otherwise what's the point of doing it? Like, just go and have fun, and like, and that is the biggest lesson that I've learned this year, is just go have fun, or there's no point of doing something. Like, and like, you could, I
think here's some really good tips actually for someone that's listening to this that does find it difficult to enjoy things, or actually struggles to perform when the time is right, is it all comes down to your relative perceived exertion. Yeah. Some people will use the term RPE. Essentially, what that's referring to is how hard you're finding something at the time. Yeah. And on some days, you may perform better than other days because you found it easier in your head. Yeah. And if you can learn to find ways of distracting yourself, interestingly, it's been shown that people that have neurodiversity, like ADHD, tend to perform better in endurance sports because they are not constantly focused on the same thing. Yeah. They're having these different thoughts. So if you are someone that does struggle and gets super focused and gets caught up thinking about how much this is hurting all the time, and you might be really well versed at pushing through it anyway, maybe have a look around if you're at a Hyrox or you're at a running race, rather than focusing on holding your pace on your watch or the time that you want. Pick someone that you want to overtake or keep up with and focus on that, because it will take you thinking so much about how you're feeling trying to hit this time, as much as, can I keep up with this person? What's their stride? What are they doing? And it will distract you. And before you know it, you've done another 200 meters and you forgot about it and you don't feel so bad. So you can do things like that. And I'm not necessarily saying pick someone that's on the distance that you wish you were as fast at. I'm saying it might even be pick someone that's going half the speed you are and beat them to that lamppost. Because even in that point of time, you're distracted from the goal that you've got. You're distracted from the pain you've got, because you're having a little race, and that can keep you going further. And when you come out of that little race, you can do it again, or you might be like, oh, my breathing's suddenly under control. Yeah. So there's little things that you can do there as well.
Picking someone to like stick with.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's weird. I've only recently just got a watch. But yeah, when I did a half marathon recently, I got my fastest ever half marathon time. And I never wore a watch. And at the end, I was like, maybe if I did have a watch, I would have ran slower because it would have made me be like, wow, this is too fast for you.
We are in an age where there's too much data, so you can very much get caught up in that. The other thing that I've recently done as well is in my training, specifically in runs, and if I'm doing like a Hyrox simulation style workout, I don't look at my heart rate. I've taken it off my screen, because if my watch is showing me flashing red, like your heart rate, you're not in a good place, I'm going to think about that. Whereas I might have been like, oh, my heart rate, I might not even be aware of what my heart rate's at, but I'm okay. And as soon as I see my watch is telling me like you're in a horrible situation, I'm like, I should probably slow down and stop.
I think you need to take them with a pinch of salt. Like I stopped wearing mine to bed because I'd wake up and it'd tell me I have bad sleep, and then I'll be in a bad mood. I'll be like, had a bad sleep last night. And it's like, if I didn't know, I wouldn't know. I didn't think I had a bad sleep.
I'm getting the reverse effect sometimes. I don't know if anyone else has had this, but I will wake up and then a few hours later, I'll get the notification saying that I had a really good quality sleep. And I'll be thinking, I don't think it was that great. And I look at it and it says that I was sleeping up until 7:30 in the morning, but I was actually up like half an hour before that, and it didn't register it. So they're not that accurate. Don't get too bogged down, but they can be useful if you're looking for an extra way for a bit more data to help you.
Elite athletes.
Exactly. Like us. I'm joking. Pseudo elite athletes. However, what I want to do is, you've already given some really good advice, but we have a listener question section. So the listener questions is an opportunity for you guys that are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast to get involved and actually ask questions directly to the guest. So don't rely on me to ask the questions you want to hear the answers to. Write it. Now, what that means is on the Instagram page, on the Instagram story, when I have a recording booked in with a guest, I like to put up a little bit beforehand, questions box, bit of information about the guest, and then you can get the answers that are appropriate to your questions. So we have 3 questions today.
Ooh.
We're going to start off with one from Matilda. However, you have almost already answered this question. So I will ask the question and I might put a bit of a change on it to get a bit of a different answer from you. So she actually asked what your biggest achievement was, but we've kind of discussed that. So what I want to ask is that your biggest achievement in the Hyrox World Championships? And what is the next biggest achievement you want to achieve?
Okay. I would say the Hyrox World Championship, only because of what I went through to get there. And it was just like an achievement that I actually went and had fun and like really, really enjoyed. And I would say it was the best moment of my life. Also changing career. I haven't touched on this yet, but I've actually become a personal trainer and I'm working at Third Space, which is one of the best gyms in London. Which I always would look on like social media and like be like, how are they working there? Like, why can't I do what they're doing? And I always like saw girls and I was like, I really want to do that. Like, I've got such a background in sport and like got a sports science degree, but like, why can't I do it? And there was always something holding me back, but I've actually like took the plunge and now I'm like working at Third Space, like living the dream that I wanted to do. I mean, it's hard work, but I'm excited. And like when you ask me what my next big goal is to become one of the best personal trainers. And I really want to like help as many people as I can to find love for sport, and just like realize how amazing like health and fitness really is, because it's completely changed my life. And yeah.
I think that's a good goal to have, because we discussed off camera, and I'm glad it was off camera, about some of the levels of personal training we've both experienced or been around, and there is definitely a standard which is slipping. So changing that and actually being a coach that knows what they're talking about, not just from like a personal understanding, but also like a scientific backing and that sort of thing, is huge.
And I just want to continue to learn and like, so I can share my knowledge with other people.
That's exactly what a good coach would do.
Yeah.
So thank you for that question, Matilda. The next question is from Joe. So Joe has actually previously been on this podcast, but he's also Charlotte's boyfriend. And he's said, you've achieved everything so far.
Yeah.
Despite some of your setbacks. So what keeps you going?
What keeps me going? Well, I think my setbacks keep me going. And I have the best support system in the world. Like, I literally have the best family and friends and people who support me that keep me going. Like when I'm having down days, they are there to pick me up. Like, and I think that is one of my like biggest pieces of advice, which we might touch on, but like, surround yourself with good people and people who are going to keep you up when you're feeling down, because the people around me keep me going in life. Like, yeah, without them, I wouldn't be who I am.
Solid. And the last question comes from a guy called Jack. What's the biggest mental barrier you face on a regular basis, and how do you overcome it?
My own self-belief. And I think a lot of people struggle with this. It's a bit like imposter syndrome, but like not thinking you're good enough. When I know I'm good enough, but like, it's just like, I don't know, I constantly have a
Self-doubt.
switch. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I want to be perfect at everything, whereas perfect doesn't exist in this world. And like, it's okay to fail. And like, I've started to realize that a lot more this year. Like, it's okay to fail, but like, it really is okay to fail, because that's the only way you're going to learn from your mistakes. But yeah, self-doubt and like trying to be perfect all the time, because no one's perfect.
In a funny sort of way, the more and more comfortable you get with failure, the less and less scary it gets. You just got to break that barrier. And to a degree, sometimes in training or in other things, there are times now where I almost search for the point of failure, because that's when I know I'm going to learn, rather than, and you hear this all the time when it comes to the gym, like train to failure. But in other things as well, like find the failure point, because that's where the lesson is.
Yeah.
If you have a really great session and you didn't struggle, then you didn't learn anything. Yeah. And so I think that's really, really good advice from you. Now, interestingly, you've been dishing out advice there in those questions, and you ruined the 3 pieces of advice bit. So the next section of this podcast is where we get 3 pieces of advice from...
I'll make them short.
Okay, cool. So 3 pieces of advice for a younger version of yourself. So essentially, imagine I'm not in the room anymore. It doesn't have to be one person, one version of your younger self. It could be 3 different ages. But what would you give advice-wise to a younger version of yourself?
So I think my first piece of advice is follow your dreams and take risks in life. Life is too short not to take risks and follow your dreams. Like, if you're stuck in a job that you don't like, or a relationship, or in a friendship group that you don't like, only you can like change that. So like, take the risk. Like, and also, you're never too old or young to like make a change. Like, I always thought, oh, I'm turning 25. Not that that's old, but like, oh, can I go into a different job? You can do whatever you want. If you're like 40, like, you can do whatever you want in this life, and only you can make that change by taking a risk. So follow your dreams, because life is too short. My second piece of advice is stop caring what people think, because that will only hold you back. Like, even if it's like your parents, your friends, like, just do what you want to do and stay true to yourself at all times. And my last piece of advice is surround yourself with people who motivate you, inspire you, and cut out people who are pulling you back, because that will really make a difference to your life, is surrounding yourself with good people who bring you up and not pull you down. Or if you're constantly surrounded by people who are like moaning or like really negative, it's only going to impact you negatively. You want to be surrounded with people who have the same goals as you, not even the same goals, but like want to do well, and that will bring you up. For sure. Excellent piece of advice. And that leads us into our final section of the podcast. So we have the previous guest question. This is an idea that is not original, but I like it, so I brought it into my podcast. And that is the previous guest asks a question for the next guest without knowing a thing about who they are. So the previous guest was Darren O'Reilly. He's the co-founder of Whole Sup, which is like a meal replacement shake kind of thing. Go and check that episode out. It is actually quite an enlightening one, because he came from a pro rugby career himself, and then he jumped ship and decided to start his own company. But his question for you was, if you were going for dinner with 5 people, I'm going to say dead or alive, who would they be and why? Oh God, I find this so hard. There's so many people. So I think I would pick Serena Williams, as she's one of the best female sport.
I think I honestly, I have her down as probably the best athlete of all time. I think she goes severely underrated.
And I think she's made such a difference for women's sport. She's insane. So I think she would be really interesting. I think I'd have Dolly Parton just because we could get her to play some music. Jolie, 9 till 5. That would be a good one. Wim Hof, I would find him so interesting. Do some deep breathing.
Just an interesting bloke, generally.
Yeah, just an interesting bloke. I'd probably have David Beckham, just because I find his story pretty interesting. And my last person, maybe a comedian, maybe Ricky Gervais.
Yeah. I like some of his new TV series that he's been doing. So.
Yeah, he's a bit controversial, but it'll make it a bit funny. But yeah, but other than that, I think I'd just have my family because they are literally like my world.
This is something you just mentioned as well in your piece of advice.
Yeah.
And you mentioned to me beforehand, but you don't necessarily find inspiration from very well-known people doing cool things.
Yeah.
Because I think, and this is something that the world is experiencing today with things like influencers, is there's no like, you can't really associate or match your personality to someone, but if you find someone within a support network that motivates you, or someone that's close to you that motivates you, like, or does something cool, then that's very inspiring and motivating.
I'm so inspired by like people at my run club, or like people I meet at work, like who are doing something like with their lives that like they're taking risks and stuff. Like I'm inspired, like even you, I'm inspired by today. Like, yeah, I'm not too inspired by like big celebrities. I don't know why, or influencers.
I think it's that whole sort of barrier because you don't necessarily see what that person's been going through. But when you can find someone that you know a bit more about them, and that's something that I've learned through this podcast as well, is that I said to you beforehand, but watching the Olympics is very different for me this year, watching the Olympics, because I have conversations like this with yourself and you actually get to peel back really what's gone on for someone to achieve what they've achieved. And I imagine that things like the Hyrox World Championships, as I've discovered through talking to some Hyrox athletes, and there's more coming up, but there's so many stories. No one's story was easy to get to there.
Yeah, when you actually talk to people, like you really don't know what goes on behind close to like people's lives and like what people are going through. Like, and it's crazy. Like,
I think it's part of the beauty of sport is personification of life in a sense, is that there are so many struggles and it's a competitive nature and the understanding of yourself that pushes you to finding the new limit and finding that next goal. And it's something I've mentioned in the last few episodes. There's a few books that I've been reading, but there's also I can't remember what it's called, but it's like the law of discovery, essentially, where if certain setbacks never happened, you might never have achieved the thing because you weren't in that state of discomfort.
So I'm actually, I overdid it because I got a bit too excited with all my training and I was feeling the fittest, and I did a half marathon, then I did Hyrox, and then I did Hyrox World Championship, and I was training like crazy, like because I was out of a job for like a month before I started my new one. I was like, what should I do today? I'll go for a run. So I was running like crazy distances, training like twice a day. And now I'm injured and I've got runner's knee and I'm trying, and I'm not feeling my fittest, strongest self. Like, and I've lost a lot of weight and I'm trying to get back to that, my strongest self, but it really is a mental game, but I'm trying to stay on top mentally. But as you said, sport is so beautiful, but it also is so hard as well. And like the mental barriers, like when you get injured, are horrible. So
as a person that's had a lot of injuries as well, injuries really are bad, but I've actually started to notice that an injury will never come at the quote unquote right time.
No.
But an injury never actually comes at the wrong time for what you end up achieving. So in terms of you getting an injury now and getting runner's knee, you can qualify for the next Hyrox World Championships until March next year. So you have plenty of time to heal that. Plus, as far as injuries go, runner's knee is something that's slightly easier to deal with than like a broken ankle or like a torn ACL,
that swim kind of thing. And stuff like that. I can do other methods of fitness.
So if anything, it's giving you a bit of a check on cut the volume down and like let's do a training.
I still need to learn that. Like even with my injury, I'm still probably pushing myself too hard. So I feel like this week I'm gonna do a week of just deloading, like reducing my step count, reducing everything, because I need to get yeah.
Well, I mean, again, I mentioned it beforehand, but more recently I've started to make some sort of content on my personal channel, which is around training, not in the normal way. It's more so in that there's free artificial intelligence resources.
I've seen
You've heard of ChatGPT. So if you are sat there thinking, I would love to have a coach, I can't afford one, or I don't really know how they would coach me, I am attempting to use ChatGPT to coach me into qualifying for the Hyrox World Championships. It's tough, but it's actually incredible if you give it the right inputs and you stay true to the plan. What it can achieve. I've been a person that has always generally trained by myself. I've had very little coaching, and I always thought I was pushing myself harder than anyone else could. And the interesting thing that I have discovered in this process is it's using a lot of science, and I do challenge it back to make sure that it's not just telling me to do something for the sake of it. I want it to understand biomechanically, physiologically, or even in terms of my mentals, why it's making me do something. But there are days like today where I turn up to a track and it tells me the pace I need to run at, the amount of times I need to do it. And I'm just saying, like, this is absurd. This doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm not physically able to achieve that, but what the hell, we'll give it a go and we'll see how long we can hold on. I did it. And the thing is, I would never have programmed that myself.
Yeah.
And that's the really important thing. So I gave it the feedback, and I've also told it to be pretty harsh with me. So I'm not someone that does well with coaching where it's like, oh, you did a great job today, great effort. I'm someone that's like, yeah, you managed to hit the goals. Like, that was expected of you. You could have done better here. That's the kind of coaching I respond to. And so the fact that I can also tailor the coaching I receive. I also want people to be aware, as personal trainers like yourself, I'm not doing this as an attack on the industry. I'm doing this as a way for people to understand what they could get out of coaching, as well as getting a bit of an understanding of what training is, because it's an incredibly complicated space if you make it complicated. If you're someone that is literally just looking to be a bit more healthy, whether that be losing weight, gaining some weight, then it's also quite simple, but people don't understand it very easily. It's very easy to get lost in things that are on social media.
So easy. And like, there's so many influencers now, like giving advice, and like, sometimes we just need to strip it back to basics.
For sure.
And like, there also is some like amazing stuff online. Like, if you do want free stuff, like on YouTube and stuff.
So that's the thing, is I want to show that there is an accessible platform. I'm going a bit overkill for what the average person might do, but that's also to display the sort of knowledge that you can get or could have about training. If there's something you learn there, great. So if you're interested in that, go and check it out. And if you have any questions, feel free to fire them my way. If you also want coaching from Charlotte, where can they find you?
Well, I've not actually set up a like page yet, but that is gonna come.
It's coming on the way.
But follow me on Instagram, Char Matthews XO.
Amazing. Before I drop where to find the podcast, I mean, people have found it if they're listening to this anyway, but where to find it on social media, and also where to find myself, I do need a question from you for the next guest, and I don't want to forget, because I've done that before. So what would you like to ask the next guest without knowing anything about who they are? Okay.
How have your priorities changed since you were younger, like to now?
Okay, I like that question. We'll get a bit of a change. Maybe there'll be a life-changing event as well, similar to you. I think that's why it's got a good question close to you. Cool. So as I said, come back for the next episode to hear the answer to that question. If you want to find the Mindsets Podcast or myself on social media, it is at mindsets_podcast. That goes for all of the social media, including the YouTube. And my personal is at Angus Cook, all one word. I've just got a bit of a weird name, but there we go. So feel free to drop a follow, drop a share, and get involved with the listener questions in the next episode. But I'm very much looking forward to see all of you in the next episode.
Woo! Thank you.